Hey everyone, I'm Luna, and you're listening to Crime Intelligence, where we uncover the truth behind some of the most shocking criminal cases. Today, we're going to look at a truly disturbing story that shook Greece and made headlines around the world. It's a case that shows how appearances can be deceiving and how the perfect life can hide the darkest secrets. What happened to Caroline Crouch seemed at first to be a horrific home invasion, but as investigators would soon discover, the truth was far more sinister. Caroline Crouch seemed to be living a fairy tale life in Greece. Born in Britain but raised on the Greek island of Alonissos, the beautiful 20-year-old had married Babis Anagnostopoulos, a helicopter pilot, in 2019. They had met when Caroline was just a teenager, and their romance quickly blossomed into what everyone thought was the perfect relationship. The couple lived in an upscale suburb of Athens called Nera, with their 11-month-old daughter and their dog. On social media, their life looked, well, pretty much perfect. Caroline would share photos of their beautiful home, their cute baby girl, and their travels together. Bobby's was this successful, handsome pilot who seemed totally devoted to his young family. Friends and neighbors often commented on how in love they appeared to be. You know, they were kind of like that couple everyone wants to be. They had a gorgeous house, a beautiful baby, and they both seemed so happy together. Caroline was this young mom who was really into fitness and taking care of their daughter, while babies had this respected career as a pilot. They even had this adorable husky named Roxy, who was like their first baby. But as we'll soon find out, behind those perfect Instagram posts and happy family photos, things weren't quite what they seemed. In the early hours of May 11, 2021, around 6 a.m., police received a desperate call from Babis Anagnostopoulos. He was found tied up, and what he told them was pretty horrifying. According to Babis, 3 men had broken into their home in Nera around 4:30 that morning while the family was sleeping. He claimed these guys were speaking broken Greek, with foreign accents. They supposedly tied him up and then tortured him and Caroline for nearly an hour, demanding to know where they kept their valuables. Babies said they threatened their baby daughter and even killed their dog by hanging it from the staircase railings. The story he told was, well, it was absolutely terrifying. He said they eventually found about 15,000 euros in cash and some jewelry. But the worst part? He told police that he had to watch, completely helpless, as one of the intruders pressed a pillow against Caroline's face until she stopped breathing. When officers arrived at the scene, they found baby still tied up, and Caroline was lying on the bed, unresponsive. Their baby daughter was thankfully unharmed, just crying next to her dead mother. The scene was exactly as Babis described. The dog was hanging from the stairs, items were scattered everywhere, and it really did look like a robbery gone horribly wrong. Babis seemed totally distraught. He kept saying he had tried to raise the alarm earlier but couldn't because the robbers had tied him up so tight. He said he only managed to get to his phone by crawling to it after they left. The police, they immediately launched a manhunt for these supposed foreign criminals who had committed this horrific crime. As news of the brutal home invasion spread, Greece was absolutely stunned. I mean, this kind of violent crime was pretty rare in the affluent suburb of Nera, and the details were just shocking. The story was everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, all over social media. People were terrified, thinking there was a dangerous gang targeting families in their own homes. The police response was massive. They had officers going door to door and questioning neighbors, checking security cameras from the whole area. They even offered a 300,000 euro reward for any information leading to the suspects. They were really taking this seriously, and the pressure was on to catch these guys. And Babis Oh man, Bobby's was everywhere in the media. He appeared on national television, tears in his eyes, begging for justice for his Caroline. He talked about their perfect life together, their beautiful baby daughter, and how these monsters had destroyed everything in just one night. He'd say things like, "I wish I could turn back time." And they didn't just kill Caroline, they destroyed our family. The funeral was just heartbreaking to watch. But Babis carried their baby daughter to the service on the island of Alonissos, where Carolina grew up. He was the picture of a grieving husband, holding Caroline's mother, laying flowers on the casket, completely broken down, in tears. The whole country was mourning with him. Greek police brought in specialists from across Europe to help with the investigation. They were looking into similar home invasions, checking airport surveillance, following up on every single tip that came in, but something wasn't quite adding up. You see, despite all this massive investigation, they couldn't find any trace of these supposed foreign criminals. Not a fingerprint, not a DNA sample, nothing on any security cameras. It was like these guys were ghosts. The case started to take a dramatic turn when investigators began looking more closely at the evidence they had. You know how they say the devil's in the details. Well, that's exactly what happened here. The more they looked, the more things just didn't make sense. First, there was Caroline's smartwatch. The data from it showed her heart had stopped beating at around 4:11 in the morning, but according to Babis' story, the robbers didn't break in until after 5 a.m. That's like a really big problem with his timeline, right? I mean, you can't fake biometric data. Then there was the couple's security camera system. Get this, it had been disabled several hours before the supposed break-in. The memory card had been removed. Now, why would robbers do that before they even entered the house? It didn't add up. The family's next-door neighbor came forward with something interesting, too. She said she hadn't heard any suspicious sounds that night. No breaking glass, no shouting, nothing. And in such a quiet neighborhood, you'd expect to hear something if there really was a violent home invasion going on. Police also found it strange that the couple's dog, who was supposedly drugged by the intruders, had been found in a completely different part of the house. And the way Caroline was tied up, the knots weren't consistent with what professional burglars would typically use, but perhaps the most damning piece of evidence, Babis' own phone. His movement data showed he'd been actively moving around the house during the time he claimed to be tied up. The activity tracker on his phone recorded him walking up and down the stairs several times when he was supposedly bound and helpless. The truth was devastating. There had been no robbery, no gang of foreign intruders. It had all been an elaborate lie. Babis admitted that he and Caroline had been arguing that night, something that had become more frequent in their marriage. Caroline, he said, had threatened to leave him and take their baby daughter with her. During his confession, Babis described how the argument escalated. In a fit of rage, he smothered Caroline with a pillow for about 5 minutes until she stopped moving. Their baby daughter was in the room at the time. After realizing what he'd done, he staged the elaborate crime scene to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. He tied himself up, messed up the house, and even killed the family dog to make his story more believable. Then he waited until a reasonable time before calling the police. It's chilling to think about how calculated it all was, you know? The confession revealed that after killing Caroline, he had placed their baby next to her dead mother's body, trying to create a scene that would support his story about violent intruders. He then removed the memory card from their security camera, disabled the house alarm system, and planned out every detail of his fake robbery story. When asked why he kept up the charade for so long, even attending Caroline's memorial service and playing the role of grieving widower, Babis said he did it to protect his daughter, but investigators believed it was simply his attempt to avoid getting caught. The man who had shed tears on national television, begging for justice for his wife, had been her killer all along. In May 2022, nearly a year after Caroline's murder, Babis Anagnostopoulos finally faced justice in an Athens courtroom. The trial lasted for more than a month, with prosecutors presenting overwhelming evidence of his guilt, including his own confession and the damning data from Caroline's fitness tracker. Throughout the trial, babies showed little remorse, actually trying to paint Caroline as emotionally unstable and claiming the killing wasn't premeditated. But the court wasn't buying it. They heard testimony about his controlling behavior and how Caroline had been keeping a diary documenting their troubled relationship. The prosecution revealed that in the weeks before her death, Caroline had been seeing a mental health professional and had been seriously considering leaving Babis. They also presented evidence that he'd been tracking her phone and monitoring her whereabouts for months before the murder. On May 16, 2022, the court reached its verdict. Babis was found guilty of premeditated murder and animal cruelty for killing the family dog. He was sentenced to life in prison for Caroline's murder, plus an additional 11 years and 6 months for killing the dog and lying to the police. The judge described the murder as calculated and cruel, pointing out how Babis had not only killed his wife, but then subjected her family to weeks of unnecessary grief with his lies. Caroline's parents were granted full custody of their granddaughter, who will now grow up without either parent. In the end, justice was served, but nothing could bring back the young mother who lost her life at just 20 years old. Babis will serve his sentence in Korydallos prison, Greece's main maximum security facility, where he remains today. Well, this case really shows how appearances can be deceiving, doesn't it? Caroline Crouch's story is a heartbreaking reminder that sometimes the truth lies beneath a carefully crafted facade. Her death at just 20 years old left an irreplaceable void, especially for her young daughter, who will grow up knowing this tragic story. That's it for today on Crime Intelligence, but don't worry, daily true crime uploads are coming your way. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below with the cases you want to hear next. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll catch you tomorrow.